coming up here from IHG to talk about their testing and quality transformation journey. Thanks, guys.
Do you want to control this? How do you move?
No, it's fine. All right. Thanks, Todd. So before we get started, a little bit of introduction about myself and my client partners and my client, and then I'll hand it over to them. We will talk about the amazing journey what we have been having for the last couple of years. First of all, my name is Balaji Muthukrishnan. I'm the service delivery lead for Accenture for the testing transformation program that we are doing in Intercontinental Hotels Group. Before we get started, let me introduce my client partners. Sanjay Kumara, IHG Director of Testing. He is a very passionate person when it comes to media, entertainment, and technology. What does it mean to us is because of his passion for media and entertainment, it is always very difficult to get any presentation get past his review. It makes my job difficult, but I'll enjoy the job, Thank you, Sanjay. And the next up is John Melly. He is our test automation manager, been with with IHG for 8 years. And he is a great partner who helped us in this transformation journey. By that, what I mean is, in this last 2 years, we went through a lot of roadblocks when we wanted to transform something, and John was always there to help us. Now we are transforming John into a specialized services lead. We will talk about the specialized services in a bit, and that's why we always call John the special agent for us from IHG testing transformation. Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Next. There you go. All right. A little bit of history about IHG. IHG has about 5,100 properties across the globe, catering more than 700,000 rooms every single day. It is one of the leading hospitality brands. The Accenture and IHG partnership started way back in 2014. We technically started the testing transformation in 2015. Like any other testing transformation, we went through the standard hurdles, right? It's a siloed model. The success factors were different for each of the teams. But it is not something which impacted IHG at that point. Now, IHG is embarking into several strategic programs. At that point, the IHG leadership decided that the need of the hour is testing transformation. So we set our goals. 3 primary goals in any other standard testing transformation project, right? Increase our quality, increase our speed to market, reduce cost. And when we started this journey, the 2015, that's when we essentially started this whole program that was primarily focused on getting our feet on the ground. We are doing a massive transformation across IHG. Currently, we have about 300 plus testers working on this program, doing a transformation. That's what our focus was on 2015. Get our feet on the ground, learn the application, and focus on transition. Towards the later part of 2015, that's when we said, okay, let's do the standardization. Like standardizing across this enterprise was a challenge. We are going to cover that in a little bit later. And then later half of 2016 is when we started our journey on transformation. From that perspective, we met all of our primary objective, what we set aside in 2014. Increase the quality. Yes, we are seeing a tremendous increase in quality. In the previous presentation, somebody talked about TMMI, right? When we started the IHG engagement, our TMMI score was like 1.4. Today, we are trending 2.8. That was early 2016 results. We are going to do something more at a later point as well. But our main challenge at IHG is like, how do we support these strategic projects? So with that, I will pass it to Sanjay to talk about his vision and how we are transforming in this journey.
Thanks, Balaji. By the way, I did not review this deck until yesterday, so you wouldn't see the media aspects of it, media and entertainment aspects of it. So as Balaji mentioned, I've been with IHG for almost a year now. We have seen a great journey in 2014 and 15, and 2016. We thought now it's time for us to step up our game, right? So keeping aside all the maturity models, we said, okay, now we have a big landscape of tools, and IHG as a company is on a roller coaster, I would say, roller coaster journey for technology improvements and technology implementations. And it's kind of in line with our vision of great hotels and guest love, right? And now the technology journey is kind of bringing us more challenges from testing as well. Now, just a classic example, we are implementing IHG Connect across all our hotels now. You get into the hotel, you don't have to log in anymore if you're a member, right? So, and you're going to have consistent Wi-Fi experience across all the hotels. Now, how do we test it sitting in Atlanta? So, we've been brainstorming on, on the new practices. How do we kind of evolve our testing organization? Now we have kind of standardized our testing strategies, testing processes, more in a traditional testing center of excellence model. Now we said, okay, now it's time for us to kind of take a journey into a quality management organization. The goals were, as any traditional testing organization, we want to enhance quality, we want to increase our speed to market and optimize the cost. And also, the one thing that we wanted to add was how do we transform our testers, right? How do we lift our testers from the ever-confusing world of, the testing, what do you call it? On the solutioning stand, what we have done is, first of all, we looked at all our test management tools. Now we said, okay, now let's standardize our test management tools. Let's generate consistent reporting. Let's give visibility to our stakeholders on the cost and quality. And the other, we're going to talk about the next slide. How do we now, we have an ecosystem of tools, right? Test management tools, performance test tools, security. We just launched our security practice, by the way. Different automation tools. Now, how do we connect our ecosystem, right? So, how do we kind of uplift our tools to bring them onto a standard platform? And of course, look at our demand and supply for our resources. We were kind of, last few weeks back, we were kind of brainstorming. We are increasing our automation coverage and we are increasing our manual strength as well. So, are we doing this right? But eventually, we are supporting more programs. So that's another goal for us to kind of right size. Right size in terms of how do I right size, right? Do I continuously say that, okay, now I'm investing more on automation, do I have to reduce my manual testers? The big change that we have done in 2016 is kind of align our testing organization towards, I would call it as, towards two different streams, the core testing services and specialized testing services. I'm going to talk about core testing services. These are the services that are focused more on, in 2016, we were kind of saying that, okay, now our system testing, system integration testing, regression testing, the standard testing phases kind of fall into our core testing services and also some portion of governance on testing. But we have focused more on specialized testing services, which John is managing it. We said, okay, now the entire technology, the testing technology moves into specialized services. We said, let's kind of the automation, security, infrastructure testing, service virtualization, performance testing, and the test environment governance, and test data management is missing here. So test data management. So we said, okay, now these require some specialized skills. So why don't we segregate these out and let our testers focus more on core testing services. Now in 2017, we've again started looking at our vision for 2017. What do we want to do, right? We're going to talk about the ecosystem that we are planning to build, the testing ecosystem. So we want to transform the tools into the testers and the testers into quality management experts. So our focus is to have this ecosystem that's taking some decisions. It's more of a rules-based ecosystem, right? So more of methodology agnostic also, whether you're in DevOps, whether you're in Agile, whether you're in Waterfall, doesn't matter, right? So all we have to understand is what code are you deploying, right? What business component are you deploying? So our tools, we've started the journey. We have recently completed a POC on the scriptless automation. That kind of cuts across various technologies. And again, the focus on our manual testers is to transform them into quality management experts. So Dan, in the slide, I don't know where Dan is, from quality engineers to quality management experts, we want them to own the applications. We want them to really understand what kind of data is required. We want them to understand how their systems are performing in production. We want them to understand what environment is required for the testers to perform. I mean, these decisions cannot be taken by any tools, I guarantee. So our we have been working with our leads as well to kind of train our testers to really understand. Now we are investing heavily in service virtualization. How do we use service virtualization, or what is that next generation test strategy? So we want our testers to focus more on owning their applications, drafting a next generation test strategy that kind of talks about service virtualization, test data management, managing the tools, managing the ecosystem of testing, producing the metrics, and getting into performance engineering and other stuff. That, John is my test manager on specialized services. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay. This slide goes over our journey, our transformation journey. It kind of shows our current state and also our future state. So I'll concentrate, there we go. On the middle here, this is the specialized services, which is a term that I'm very happy Sanjay came up with, because when people ask me what I do, I would just rattle off all these terms. Now I can just say specialized services, and I have special agents working for me, so that works out really nicely. The first component, which Sanjay touched on, is performance testing. Our tool of choice there is Performance Center. We have actually a very mature set of scripts for a bunch of several applications, revenue impacting applications. What we're trying to move towards now is to integrate that with our build process and our source control, so we can actually kick off performance tests earlier in the cycle, because one of the challenges we have right now is when you run a performance test very late in the development cycle, finding out a performance issue 2 to 3 days before you go to production is not ideal. So we actually had a proof of concept, as was alluded to earlier. You want small victories, so we had a proof of concept with a revenue impacting application that went really well. We integrated Performance Center with Jenkins, and we're going to roll that out across all the applications. So that will be very useful and actually make the development cycles much more efficient. And if we find any issues earlier, as we all know, that is cheaper.
And actually, this ties back to the methodology agnostic model that I'm talking about. So we are working on another POC with our development partners, where where we are. It's more in terms of responsive booking flow. So there's a different application. So we are doing a POC where we're just trying to connect the ecosystem. Let's say your build deployment comes in. Your build comes in. How do we, how does my automation tool understand that this is a deployment in dev environment, and I need to talk to service virtualization, I need to talk to test data management tool. So we are kind of working, and if it is a deployment in QA, then I would have to do an extensive run. I would have to pick up, instead of 100 test cases, now I would have to pick up 1,000 test cases in QA environment. I would have to do system integration testing and end-to-end testing. So the tools, we're building rules on the tools. So the tools take some decisions based upon which environment the build is coming in, and produce all sorts of reports and dashboards for us.
Right, and that's one thing I wanted to point out too, is a lot of what we execute now is manual. We have our engineers kick them off manually, and our goal is to automate the process across the board here. So the next one here, functional testing. We use the usual suspects. We use UFT, we use Selenium, and we use Perfecto. And as others alluded to, we had a proof of concept with Tosca that went really well, and we're really excited about the prospects there to use Tosca to help us with this integration process, and also to help us test end-to-end rather than get away from testing applications. We want to test business components. We want to test at a higher level and get away from finding symptoms and actually correcting the root cause or the problems.
Just a point, John.
Yeah.
On this particular stuff, the IAG tools landscape is much more complicated than we are depicting here. We standardize that to a great extent. For example, in our test management tools as well, we had 3 different test management tools. Even within each of those test management tools, there are different configurations and different standardization existed. So our first goal was, how do we standardize that? That's why you will see that the top section of the box, now we are trying to make the test management tools talk to each other. We are at a point that those two can talk. Yep. Only then we can produce a consistent dashboard across the enterprise. That's our goal. That's what we are working on. We are able to, again, some of them are work in progress. We are able to standardize our test management tools and have them talk to a central BI reporting tool, so that we can produce the standard consistent dashboard across the enterprise. The one which John mentioned about is the core function, right? Performance, functional automation, and security testing. We do have certain, improvements which we are working on in our security testing practice. Being in hospitality industry, the security testing practice need not have to be as mature like an insurance or a banking industry, but still we need a security testing, and that's why we are strengthening it right now.
Right, and just to take it a little further, so in the test management, basically we use ALM for mainly waterfall projects, and then we use Rally obviously for our agile projects, and we're going through a tool standardization process, which Balaji mentioned. So we normalize the defect fields between the two tools, and then next we're going to normalize the test cases between the two, and then we can pull better metrics across the enterprise. And then for security testing, we're using IBM AppScan, and it's mainly manually executed, and that's one thing we're looking at. We're working with ops and the security team to perhaps get a new tool, definitely make it more automated. I think everybody sees a pattern. We're trying to get this all automated and integrated.
Actually, we have formalized our security testing practice last quarter, and now we are looking at building the security. I mean, we would call it as more of security engineering, bringing more static code analysis into the early SDLC lifecycle. And also similarly, the test data management and service virtualization. So I mean, you can talk about.
Right. So we recently purchased the CA test data management tool, which we're really excited about, and we're kicking that off. It's very early in the process. Service virtualization we've actually used for a couple years. We started on actually when it was called Lisa 751, and we had a lot of victories there. One of the things that was alluded to earlier that I found interesting was finding scenarios in production that shouldn't exist. We actually had a couple of those scenarios happen to one of our key applications, and we literally could not reproduce it in the test environment, and groups were arguing, DBAs were arguing with developers, we can't do that, so we actually stood up a virtual service to mimic it, and then they were able to fix the issue without basically breaking the database to figure out what happened, so that was very, very effective. And then our final, at the top here, whoops. Can we go back? I hit the wrong button.
I think so.
I hit the wrong button. I meant to do the pointer.
You can't go back?
No, they have to do it for us. Thank you. So at the top here, we want to, once we get everything integrated and automated, we want to come up with these test metric dashboards, and all of this kind of ties together to that goal. We're working on a web solution, and then Sanjay wants us to have like a mobile app that any stakeholder can use to, hey, how's my performance test going? And they can just pull it up on their phone, see how they're doing, maybe compare it to previous tests, instead of relying on emails and attachments.
On this particular side, I specifically wanted to call out a lot of our stakeholders here who are helping us in this transformation. For example, Zach was primary in building this framework for us along with our input. Thank you, Zach. And likewise, Paul was there to help us build the test dashboard stuffs. And service virtualization, Mike is helping us in building the team and helping us to build that. Thank you to all of you guys who are helping us in this transformation.
And also on test data management, right? And the last 3 months have been a pretty successful story on test data management. So it was kind of, we started with manual practices, more in terms of, getting data requisitions and segregating the data profiling, subsetting and other stuff. But, we were successfully able to sell our business case to procure a tool now. So we started with, in partnership with CA and Accenture, we started implementing more robust automated test data management activities. So the self-service portal will be up and running in next 20-25 days, where users can just click on the button and they get the data.
Can we play the video? So we did a pilot on the Tosca implementation. Again, IHG landscape comprises of 125 different applications. 35 of them are major applications. So what we did is we are embarking on a pretty strategic enterprise level programs that required us to talk to different things.
Yeah.
Sanjay, you wanted to?
I think as you could see, right, so we have different technologies, right? So how do we integrate our landscape, right? So we eventually we were using different tools, some tools were standard tools in the market, and some solutions were more people-dependent solutions, right? So JMeter and other stuff. So we said, okay, why don't we look at sort of one tool or combination of one or two tools that can integrate the landscape. So with this solution, we were able to integrate our web technologies in the mainframe and the Oracle packaged application.
Yeah. So on this one, essentially what this does is like the call center agent picks up a call and makes a reservation. That's essentially what we did. And then we traverse the data from the call center application to a Holodex, which is our mainframe platform, wherein we can pull up that reservation and make modifications. You will see that in a minute. And then from there, what we did is we went to a property management application. I'm talking faster than that.
I think you would have to wait. Let the mainframe load.
Yeah, the mainframe is loading.
The thing to point out here, though, is a lot of the existing automation we run separately.
Yeah.
So this was the POC was hugely successful to show that we can conduct end-to-end testing of the whole ecosystem.
Yep.
Still mainframe is loading. So, finally.
There it goes.
So we were able to pull up that reservation, which was made through a call center application, and then make a modification to the reservation. That's exactly what's happening here. And then what we did is we logged into a property management system so that the guest makes a reservation, guest makes a modification, and then we log into a property management application. In the property management application, what we do is we physically check in the guest. Like we log into this one, and then we make that.
This is on web.
This
Yes,
is on the
this is
web,
on
yeah.
web.
Yep.
The web, the customer is further making a modification.
And we've also integrated service virtualization, the last step. Yeah, that's property
This is
management
essentially
system.
our property management application. Again, all we are trying to demonstrate to our enterprises like a solution like this, again, a great partnership with our Accenture team, wherein they were able to come and explain to us what is the benefit of this scriptless automation. Again, this whole suite of automation was done less than 2 weeks.
Right.
And that's why we are moving into this model and try to see how we can build an end-to-end automation solution across the enterprise comprising of the 125 different applications.
Yep.
The POC was definitely significant because, as I mentioned earlier, we use UFT, Selenium, and Perfecto, and this tool showed us, like in less than 2 weeks, that they can do it all.
Yeah.
So it was very powerful.
Maybe we can discontinue the video. It's going to take about 7 minutes to execute a huge business process, starting from an Oracle system, going all the way back to a mainframe system, and then using our service virtualization, wherein the guest gets the notification of the reservation.
I think this kind of ties back to what we were discussing earlier. The scriptless automation tool, pretty light on technology, but again, more from an integration standpoint, it's going to integrate with our test data management tool. It's already talking to our service virtualization tool, and this is the landscape that I think probably Tosca is there somewhere. Yep. I could see. The goal is to standardize the tech platform, completed POC for Tosca. Now we want to kind of replace Tosca with all our existing tools on the long run. Now, get into the next one.
Okay. The next one, this is another thing which Accenture partnership helped IAG, that is the Perfecto solution for our mobile testing. The problem what we had at IAG is China is our growth platform. We wanted to do more and more of testing in the China, especially from a mobile platform standpoint. And currently, it is completely manual in nature. Not currently, a year ago, it was completely manual in nature, and we were not able to do any validation in China because of the firewall restriction and other steps. All we were doing, the functional testing, was taking our Android and iPhone and then trying to modify the location physically on the devices, stating that it is China, and doing a functional testing. That's all we were doing, and we were leaking a lot of defects into production. That's where our business partners came to us and says, hey, we need a solution from you guys. And that's when we reached out to our mobile testing capability, thanks to Babu, who helped us in shaping up this solution. All we did is, okay, let's go and standardize our regression suite. We did the regression suite, and then we looked at, okay, let's use our Perfecto capability to test those solutions from China, and it worked really well. And then we said, we wanted to move it to the next level, that is automating our regression, especially the native app regression, using Perfecto solution. In this whole process, we also implemented the zero-touch deployment. So the success story for us in this whole journey is like we were able to bring down our regression timeline from 8 days in a sprint, which is comprising of 2 weeks to, we have a monthly release. The second half of the release is dedicated towards regression. We were able to bring it down from 8 days to 2 days. That's a significant thing. And the other thing is we were also able to implement the zero-touch deployment, right? So that we were able to identify all those bugs early in the life cycle, and it helps us towards the shift-left approach. And from a cost-saving standpoint, we had a 74% savings from our manual cost reduction on this space. And from a device cost, the year one, we did not plan it well. We said, okay, everybody is going to use Perfecto to do that functional validation. That was not the right model. We optimized our model, again, with the partnership from our mobile testing capability. What they did is, okay, let's look at your needs. Your needs are location-based testing, where you will not be able to perform testing. And the second thing, what you need is increase your automation penetration with the right solution. So both of them, we were able to achieve. And from a cost-saving standpoint, 74% reduction on the manual testers on the mobile testing space, especially from a regressions testing standpoint, and then the 50% cost saving, right? We changed our device strategy in such a way that we are going to use this Perfecto Cloud only for, China-based testing and also the automation stuff, and then use our manual testers with the physical devices where it is applicable to do the functional validation. As Sanjay pointed out, we wanted our manual testers to be the smith of the application and use the devices or the technology to do the foundational stuff. And that's another story which we want to share it with everybody. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
Any
Open
questions?
for questions?
Getting back to the example that you said with the Tosca POC, where you did an end-to-end, some end-to-end testing, and you have all these other tools doing application-specific testing, right? And do you plan to basically just do a lot more end-to-end testing, or will you still keep a good grouping of your regression tests that are automated already, or do you plan to just totally replace those?
I think I would say it's a combination of it. Right now, our focus is on building an end-to-end suite, right? So an automated end-to-end suite. But again, we are working with Tosca. We're trying to implement a more, I would call it as a function-based testing approach. So I mean, considering the direction that we are planning to get in 2017, where we want to kind of shift left, make ourselves methodology agnostic. We are working with Tosca to identify solutions, lighter solutions, where we can test individual components rather than testing the entire business function flow. So I think it's a combination, but again, we are moving away from heavy-duty solutions such as SP, HP, UFT, and other stuff. It's a great tool, but people-dependent practices as well.
Right, because I was thinking that if you do the end-to-end testing, you'll probably be touching things that you don't necessarily need a lot of other regression scripts to cover that same functionality.
Yeah, so
But at the same time, you don't want to overkill on the end-to-end testing either, as far as the number of automated scripts going end-to-end. I don't know the impacts of your systems being together and integrated, but that's what I've seen on some applications.
our approach to that problem is like what we are thinking is, if there is an application-specific functional test change which has happened to that application box, use your existing regression. Follow your current methodology of enhancing your regression for that application-specific. But at IAG today, it's more of enterprise-wide changes which are happening. That's when we need to focus on end-to-end. And the Tosca solution comes handy from that aspect of that. But Tosca can also use your existing Selenium and other suites, which they can integrate with so that it can meet your purpose.
And think about it, right? So, let's say you make an application change. It could be one application change, but eventually it's always beneficial. You have an automation suite for the end-to-end testing, right? So you deploy the code changes into your dev environment. You do your component testing or component integration testing. Deploy the code into your QA environments. Your end-to-end suite automatically triggers.
So when you say end-to-end testing, are you covering back-end testing as well, or is it just front-end?
Can you
Yes, we're
speak louder?
covering back-end. That was the holodex part.
Oh, so you do cover back-end
Absolutely.
testing?
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think what we'll do is we're concentrating on end-to-end testing because we want to test our ecosystem heavily. And then eventually, as Tosca becomes more successful, I foresee us drilling down on each application, maybe having suites for each application built in, and then you can just kind of pick and choose which tests to run with them.
And also as part of this flow, right, we did not only automate the GUI functions, right? Now we have automated the API services. We have automated. I mean, we were almost getting ready to automate the backend part as well, but considering the time we had for POC, we did not accomplish that. But yes, not all applications are GUI-based applications, right? Some are service-based. So eventually, as part of the end-to-end flow, you are covering the entire landscape from GUI to your services to your data backend.
How successful was that POC for the backend? Not sure if the POC includes for the backend, but for the Tosca.
It was very successful.
We were able to
performed
start from
beautifully.
the channels, go all the way to the back end, come back to the channel. If
Yep.
you look at it from a hospitality terminology, we started from our web front end, went all the way to the back end, and then came back to the property management system as well.
In the past, we had to use UFT exclusively for that, so Tosca showed it can do that as well as the normal web GUIs.
You mentioned that service virtualization, you guys are actually fairly far along in your service virtualization journey. Can you share some of the challenges you guys have had in that journey? And specifically what I'm talking about is that I've heard that if you use CA Lisa and your application undergoes changes, you then have to actually update those service scripts, if you will. So can you just share some of the experiences you've had with some of the challenges?
Great story, great question. In 2016, our focus was more on developing the services. Right now, the question that comes to us is, when we keep talking about service virtualization, we say that, okay, now, do I virtualize all services, or do I just focus on third-party integrations, right? But for us, the need was we wanted to virtualize all services, and the reason was, looking at our environment landscape, the lower environment landscape, we have, ecosystem connected integrated landscape. So, and we have 35 applications working on different projects or programs, and they deploy the code into the integrated environments. We might end up breaking something else. So what we said is, why don't we build a pre-int environment, a pre-QA environment, which is an instance of dev that's connected to virtualized services, and we have started that work. So last year, 2016, we were focused on building the services. Now in 2017, our strategy is more towards how do we consume those services and how do we build maintenance on those services. And we've been working with application owners, saying that, okay, there is a code deployment that impacts services. There is a deployment process for the services as well. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
So eventually, it's like code. You're dealing with code. You need to have configuration management. You need to have change management.
Within your organization structure, you mentioned that you have accountability for performance testing and security testing. I'm just curious, is that limited just to the testing aspect, or does it also include responsibility for performance tuning, for performance engineering, or from a security perspective, the security architecture aspects of understanding the security vulnerabilities?
Great question, and this is where I was heading towards, how do I want to transform my testers, right? So, last year, we were kind of, stepping up our game, we were kind of in the maturity journey, but in 2017, our focus is more on performance engineering as well, right? So, how do we move performance engineering? We are looking at BlazeMeter and a couple of tools, lightweight solutions, but we're still going to have the load runner-based solution, which is kind of the final sign-off, sign-off on performance testing. So, what we are saying is performance engineering, and again, educate my testers to be the experts in performance testing, right, in performance engineering, right, and try to really understand, the performance tuning aspects of it. Similar to security testing also, we have launched an official security testing practice. Now we are training our testers as well to be kind of security experts, to really understand what's going on across the world and what we are trying to test and what are the different vulnerabilities. How do we look at our static code analysis reports? So we are, it's a journey, but yes, absolutely.
And we're also planning on using service virtualization for performance testing.
Yep.
It comes with a performance mode which you can use. So if we're going to do performance testing earlier, you're not necessarily going to have the infrastructure behind it. You're just going to kill the system. So if you want to performance test your application, you just stand up virtual services that can handle the load, and then you're really just performance testing that application. You don't have to worry about any of the dependencies.
Yeah, one more here.
So I know I was on my phone, so I might have missed something. So in terms of how you're trying to do Agile and Tosca, what is your approach that you're trying to do in order to get your developers involved as early as possible in the Agile process? And then in regards to performance testing, have you looked at the integration that Tosca themselves are building out with some of their vendor partners around performance, which would allow you to basically build out a Tosca workflow and then utilize those same Tosca workflows in performance testing?
From a performance testing standpoint, especially integrating with Tosca is something which we have not looked at this point. All we have done is, again, the need of our at IAG is like, how do I build an end-to-end testing which can be automated to support our strategic projects? So from a performance testing aspect, we have not looked at Tosca. All we are looking at is purely from our load runner and performance center, and that's what we are focused on right now. Because the strategic projects are a little longer duration. That's why we want to get our automation cycle going in, but the performance will follow after that.
But again, I was talking about the little POC that we are planning to start in next couple of weeks, which is more focused on making testing methodology agnostic, right? So what we are trying to do is I'm working with the application owner where where I give the results to the developers much early in the life cycle. Let's say you do a code deployment, we then measure, should we run performance tests for that particular code? Is it complex enough to have performance impacts, right? So we're trying to build some rules on it, and also we are kind of looking at some of the release automation tools as well. So bring all this landscape into that release automation and let the tools take some decisions. Make sense?
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.